Okay, got it.
Okay, cool. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. This is a Brazilian guitar masterclass with Fernando Perez. Fernando's got a new book just out at the moment where he's teaching, he's been sort of discovering some of these traditional Brazilian styles and looking about how they use the 7-string guitar, which is it's a real sort of deep instrument that you find it in Brazilian music. You know, it's not as common, but it's a part of that guitar tradition. There are some sort of really big virtuoso guitarists over quite a few years who've been known for using that instrument. But you know, Fernando plays all of these amazing guitar styles. He's got all of these great guitars. You might have seen some of the fretless guitars or the guitars with mini fretlets, little extra bits that he's using for Arabic and Middle Eastern music and Turkish music, so he can get these extra microtones. And you know, I think he developed that style because it's quite impractical going to a guitar gig in a different country that you're playing, taking 4 different guitars that you might only play one song on each of them, and most of them on a standard guitar. So he's been very much a proponent of making accessible and developing these styles. Even the Hindustani slide guitar course that he's got, he teaches that on an Indian slide guitar that has all these extra sympathetic strings, but it can all be done on the 6-string. It can all be done on the standard guitar. And so that's really what he's about. I mean, when Fernando said he wanted to teach a Brazilian class, I thought, oh crikey, I had no idea that you got your head around this style as well, because it's literally so many kinds of music that he's been teaching with the students here, guitar styles or styles of music transposed onto the guitar where guitar isn't a traditional instrument. It's the kinds of music from Kurdistan, China, Hawaiian guitar, all kinds of Middle Eastern and Mediterranean styles, West African too. So when he said, let's do a Brazilian guitar masterclass, I thought, great, let's make this a free session, seeing as it's World Music Day tomorrow. And we can kind of celebrate that by discovering a bit more traditional music. So thank you very much, Fernando.
All right, my pleasure, Ed. And yeah, as I was saying, I just had this new book I released and talking about Brazilian music, Brazilian guitar. And especially today, one of the things that I wanted to do is something that sometimes I've been seeing missing in many publications about Brazilian guitar and courses and things like that. I mean, not saying that it's not there, but it's not the common thing to find. And it's like many times when we try to learn Brazilian music on the guitar, and I'm the first one that have been through that, we find like 2 ways. We find these charts or lead sheets, like you will find on a real book. Nowadays we even have the Brazilian fake book and all these kind of things where you have only the lead sheet with the melody and the chords and you have to figure it out. And even some jazz players, if they have to play a bossa, they just learn a couple of different patterns and that's it, or just a couple of patterns for samba and that's it. But not all the sambas are the same, and etc. We're gonna see about that. So that's one thing, when you have the chart and you have to figure out things, and then you have other type of sources of information where we find like fixed arrangements for the guitar, where we learn, how to play a certain tune on the guitar, and it might be a famous tune or whatever, like a choro, a bossa, a samba, etc. Everything is fixed, sounds really beautiful, super Brazilian, down to the note. But at the end of the day, we can play a nice song, which is always great, but we don't understand what we're really doing or where it comes from, etc. Yeah. And when I mean this, I don't mean from the point of view of a jazz thinker of Brazilian music. We know it has a lot of jazz influences in terms of using a lot of different fancy chords with tensions and the relations between the chords and the scales. I'm not talking about from this point of view, which we could talk about it too, maybe in another session, but more on the real roots of Brazilian music, okay, which is all those rhythms and the influences where they come from Africa, actually from in a big way from West Africa, but not the West Africa we deal a lot many times here on these sessions, but more like a southern West Africa. You know, we talk about Angola and that area. All right. So we want to talk about all that, how all that is created, because if many of you have already experience with Brazilian music, you'll see all these styles like, for instance, choro, or the typical choro, samba, bossa, okay, the most popular. But then you have forró, and you have partido alto, maracatu, you have baião, you have just so many of them, you know. And suddenly you'll think that you learn a choro, and you kind of have like an accompaniment or a rhythm for a choro, and you'll say, okay, well, so all choros should be played with this kind of rhythm or accompaniment, but it's not like that. Or you will learn a samba, you will learn like a samba pattern or something to just play your chords, and you will be like, okay, so this is the samba way to, you know, the way to accompany the samba. And yeah, it is right, but it's not always like that. And even more, suddenly as you get deeper into the stuff, you might find a choro that has a pattern that is like the same one you found on a samba. So it's like, what the heck is this? You know, we always learn in terms of, if we're playing samba, we play in samba rhythms, and that's what it belongs, you know. And in Brazilian music, many times it doesn't happen like that. Okay, you get a choro, and you might call a song choro, but the accompaniment might be from a maxixe, it can be from also a pattern from a samba. It can be also, let's say, well, the old used to be called the Brazilian tango, which nowadays not, the term is not used anymore. This is before the Argentinian tango. You know, the moment the Argentinian tango became so popular, then Brazilians, they stopped kind of using the name of Brazilian tango. Some of them, you can even find some Brazilian musicians who actually say, you know, Brazilian tango is something that doesn't exist. It's just a matter of giving names to things. It doesn't matter. But we're gonna see now where all these things come from, and where do they go, and how do we use them. So we have a better understanding of this amazing style and a really good foundation. So no matter where you get in your information and your resources, you understand what's going on and you take full advantage of it. That leads me to this point, that remember also that we have the World Music Method. There is a fantastic course about Brazilian guitar. Maybe some of you are already on that course or look at it or whatever. But anyway, just wanted to make sure, since we're talking about sources to find good Brazilian music and where to learn it, you know, I think Ed would kill me if I didn't say this. But anyway, sincerely, yeah, it's a fantastic course. Personally, I've been checking it out too, because I'm always curious, and even though I'm always teaching music, I never stop learning. So I'm always looking forward to discover new details and anything possible, yeah. So let's start talking about Brazilian music and what's happening, especially on the guitar. Okay, one thing we need to understand on Brazilian music is that we're trying to play a lot of like polyrhythms, a lot of different rhythms at the same time. These rhythms are also, we use melodies to reflect these rhythms. But what happens if we have a melody with one rhythm and we mix it with another melody with another rhythm, and we even add a third melody with another rhythm, and we put the notes together? If we combine all these notes, we're gonna probably end up with like a full like 16 notes stuff, yeah? And suddenly everything just melt or blend, and we don't really discern what is melody number one, melody number two, or melody number three, yeah? And this is basically what's happening on the guitar, okay? And not only just not discerning the melody, but not discerning the rhythm of the melody, which is super important in this style of music, okay? So we need to really understand all this in Brazilian music in order to give a good performance and to understand the music that we learn, all right? So we have to keep in mind how important is rhythm in Brazilian music. And to know how rhythm goes and to really be able to create the groove that we need for a certain style, all right? For instance, there is a great example that we can see. Let me see if I have here. I can already share it with you. Yeah, I can put it right here on the chat and you guys can download it. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, here it is. Right on your chat, you have a PDF, all right? It's a composition called Brasileirinho. Okay, it's very famous. Okay, it's like a must know on the guitar, at least when you're starting, you know, to play Brazilian music. It's a beautiful piece. Okay, and a good example, you know, that you will find, you know, by many teachers when they teach you in Brazilian music is you playing this song and suddenly you play like this, yeah. So what happened here? This sounds very dull, very flat, okay? Because we have no accents. It's totally like just 16 notes one after the other. And we hear a really nice harmonic progression on those arpeggios, but that's it. So Brazilian music is not like that, okay? Suddenly we start playing it like this. Okay, and suddenly like, oh, there is something different there, but it's still not. I was just putting an accent on the first 16 note. But here's the thing, and this is something that's going to happen most of the time on the Brazilian music. This is what we call the elementary, well, what they call many people on the theoretic world of music, you know, okay, the elementary Brazilian pulse, which is always, or most of the time, putting an accent on the fourth 16 notes, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if we apply this to the same piece, we get this. And it sounds completely different. Now it sounds Brazilian, okay? So this is like the first accent, you know, the first stress we need to put on the melody already to start giving that flavor, okay? But this is one of them. And when we actually play many styles in Brazilian music, there's gonna be many mixes, like I told you, like several rhythms, like polyrhythms and several melodies reflecting these rhythms that are gonna be together. And we need to give them, you know, the weight, the necessary weight for them to come alive and to stand up when they need to stand up, and others to stand down when they need to stand down, all right? So one exercise, for those who haven't worked much on playing with accents and being accurate, and especially on this Brazilian elementary pulse, there's a really great exercise I happened to I was going to suffer because it was quite challenging at the beginning. This is when I was like, I think I was like 17 or something like that. I don't know, I was in a music school and I got this musician from South America. He was actually not Brazilian. I think he was from Uruguay, I think so. He gave us this exercise, which is just 16 notes, okay? We're gonna play 4 groups of 16 notes. And first we need to accent the first beat, okay, the first 16 notes, which will be something like this, like it will be like a 4/4 time signature. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So we're gonna accent the first 16 note on the first beat, and the rest we don't. 3, 4, 1. Okay, super easy. Now we take variation number 2. Accent on the second 16 note. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2. All right, that will be number 2 to practice. Then we go number 3. You see it coming. Accent on the third 16 notes. 3, 4, 1. Okay, Try to play it slow at the beginning, then speed it up as you get more comfortable, yeah, because things are gonna get fast in Brazilian music. Okay, then we put the accent on the fourth 16 notes, and here is where we have the Brazilian pulse, yeah, okay, that will be the fourth variation for you to practice. Okay, by the way, if you guys are interested in funky music, this exercise will be super good for it. This will help you just to really master rhythm, especially on binary subdivisions, yeah? So we have the 4 accents. When we put it on the fourth 16 notes, then we start getting the idea of the Brazilian pulse. In reality, on the Brazilian, we will put it on every fourth 16 note of every, so it will not be only on the first group of 4. It will be in all of them in a 4/4 time signature, yeah? Time signature. But anyway, this is just a way to get there and to practice and to start getting loose, because also when we play on the guitar, when we put accents, they're gonna get crossed with our picking. Either we are finger picking or if we play with a flat pick, etc. So that's why I recommend you to do this type of exercise, just like I'm doing right now here, like this. You can do it just with the hand, you can do it with the pick, you can just go just with the pick, and you can even do it with index middle as you walk. Okay, put in the different accents, like I told you. So you just have the first 4 16 notes, okay? Accent on the 1, on the 2, on the 3, and then on the 4. Then this group of 16 notes, the next variation, you're gonna take it on the second beat of the 4/4 time signature and practice the same thing. Then put it on the third beat and practice the same 4 variations. Then put it on the fourth and practice again, okay? And then if you're quite diligent, you probably roll all this down on a paper, look at the paper and start playing, and suddenly just skip, just jump around without stopping your tempo, and try different ones. Go for the first one, then jump somewhere else, I don't know, on the third beat, on the second 16 note, things like that. Okay, make sure you make it right, that you keep the tempo, use a metronome, obviously, to make sure you're not dragging. Okay, and this will give you a good, this will help you master rhythm, and especially not just rhythm and keeping up tempo, but accents and where to place them, because this is super important, okay? So that will be a really good exercise if you just, I hope you all understood the exercise, okay? And you can just develop it on your own time, little by little, yeah? And let's move on. So from here, we got this Brazilian pulse, and we go back to the beginnings of Brazilian music, where we have different styles that were coming. Actually, in Brazilian music, in history, according to Brazilian music history, we start counting Brazilian music history, just to put it that way, from, I think it was around the 1500s, something around there, okay? There was music before that in Brazil, but there was no accounts or anything written on how it was and what way. And also the first colonizers that went to Brazil, they were not doing like a really great job on keeping up what was going on music-wise. They were more interested in, getting some riches and, whatever colonizers do, yeah. So then we're counting music only from those years, okay, which is not the completely history of Brazilian music. But then is when we have all these African slaves coming to Brazil and working there, and the story is always repeating itself, like in North America or Central America, etc., where these Africans, they want to practice their beliefs and their rituals, etc., and they cannot do that because this is, especially for the church, ruling there is like no, it's a big no. So they have to disguise all their rituals and all their practices, yeah, like the famous capoeira, yeah, that everybody's like now, oh, it's so cool, so it comes from something else, but they just dress it like that. Or like when we have in the world Samba, we have the frevo, yeah, where you have all this dancing and the guys are like jumping with an umbrella on their head and some colorful dresses, and you think like, oh, the guy is dancing, it's so cool. And no, this came from a totally different thing. They were practicing something else, but they just have to start dressing kind of like clowns, just to put it that way, and tell them that they were just having fun, so they would not be forbidden to do these things. This happens a lot, and many people think in Brazil, the history of Brazilian music is so colorful and so happy and all this, but in reality the story is the opposite. It's a lot of struggle, a lot of people going hungry and trying to play their music or practice their beliefs and not being able to do it and having to change that. Okay, so then we have all these Africans, and then we have the Europeans coming there. Okay, and even some of the African kids of the slaves, the way they have to learn music, if they want to, they have to go through the European guys, and learn some of their classical music. They have the famous Irmandades, which was like brotherhoods, where they will actually take these kids and teach them music. And then we have one of the styles that came there, that was the lundu. Okay, the lundu, and let me just send you something right here. Okay, the lundu was this kind of rhythm that at the beginning ethnomusicologists, especially the ones specialized in Cuban music, they used to call it tresillo, because they have this rhythm that was like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. This is a rhythmic cell that we find in North African rumba. We find it on the Argentinian milonga. We find it on just so many styles of music around the world. Yeah. So in this part of the world, they call it lundu. Okay. It has that 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. And if you see the page I just sent you on the chat, we have a pattern where it says exercise 23. We have a pattern, the second line. Okay. And this is something I want to explain you. This is how we're gonna see the rhythms, and it's dividing voices between what we call a voiced note and unvoiced note. Okay, so we have a pattern on the second line, and you see the voice line is the one on top. Okay, and on the bottom is the unvoiced one, meaning the voice one is an important one that gives the character to the style of the rhythm that we're using. Yeah, and the unvoiced is not so important, we could say that way, but we should never forget it, and we should never omit this unvoiced pattern, because without the other, it will not work. Okay, so for instance, if we have this lundu, we'll have to go like tekoko tekoko teko tekoko tekoko teko tekoko tekoko teko. The te will be like the high voice, the voiced pattern, and the unvoiced will be something like the ko. Yeah, tekoko tekoko teko tekoko tekoko teko. Okay, and obviously the important one, the one that we probably are going to end up putting the accent on, is the voice one. So we have this one, the lundu. Okay, we're not going to work on a lundu right now. Okay, but I want you to see that pattern, because the next thing we have, let me find the page here, is another style here. Okay, let me send it to you. Ooh, is it opening? Here it is. Okay. Which is the polka. Okay. Let me see if I open this. Okay, here it is. So where the lundu was more of African origins, the polka was more like a European kind of dance, all right? Like many other dances that got to Brazil and they got mixed up, yeah, with the African stuff. So the polka, one of the easiest pattern to recognize a polka is this umpa 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 pa 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 um. Everybody probably heard some kind of song that has this kind of rhythm, yeah, really. Maybe you could say cheesy, but anyway, it's just one more rhythm. Okay, so what we have here, one of the first recognizable patterns or rhythms that we get in Brazilian music is the famous maxixe. Okay, and the maxixe is just a mixture of the lundu with the polka. Okay, that tresillo or that 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 pattern from the lundu is something you see on the page that you send you. You see down where it says maxiche, you see it says exercise 25. And you see the chords, the pattern, the higher notes pattern. You see the rhythm of the lundu 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. That 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 will be on 16 notes, okay? And then on the bottom, we have the basic baseline of the polka. You know, if you see up on the polka, it says umpa, umpa. It will be the okay? And then on top we have 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2, okay? So if we put both together, we get this, like something like. Okay, that would be the polka one, you know, just marking the downbeats. But then we have the 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2, like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. Okay, these maxiche rhythms. Okay, we can find some songs that we call them directly maxiche. This is something actually very confusing in Brazilian music. And it's like you see a song and you see it somewhere, it will say the name of the song and it will say maxiche. It's like, okay. And then you go somewhere else and you will see the name of the song and instead of saying maxiche, it will say choro. Okay, and you'll be like, this is a maxiche or this is a choro. Okay, first thing, in Brazilian music happens kind of like flamenco, for instance, for those who probably have been dealing with flamenco or other types of music, it's like a really folk style. So something that happens a lot in these styles is like, it's very difficult to say this is it and the rest is wrong, okay? Most people will have part of the truth, okay? So that's what you'll find. Somebody will tell you this is that, and the other person will tell you something different, and you know, my best recommendation for this is just listen to everybody, try to concile everything, or just, you know, see what they say, try it on yourself, and you see. Many times they're just talking about the same thing, they're giving different names, because also depending where they come from, they might call it differently, okay? But this maxiche, choro kind of thing that you will find, the only thing to know here is like maxiche is kind of like a rhythm, like many Brazilian rhythms, that comes from types of dances or styles of dancing or rituals for where people dance and things like that. So when you find a choro that is a maxiche, what it means is that it is, the song is composed like a choro. It might be in the structure, in the chords that it uses, or the type of melodies, but the rhythm they use to accompany the choro is a maxiche rhythm. You will find this a lot. Like I told you, you can also find a choro that has a samba pattern for the rhythm, for the accompaniment, okay? So don't go nuts, don't be like, okay, this is a samba, this is a choro, what the heck is this? I'm going nuts. No, it can be both. You just have to understand why, okay? So here we have a pattern of the maxiche, the 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 with that bass. Okay, right there, it's like a maxiche, and you have the pattern tam, ta, 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 okay? So, that's the first thing. Let me send you another page here. Okay, let me make sure I get the right one. Yeah, well, actually, this is just what I just played, so I'm just gonna send you this page so you have it in case you want to try it. Okay. I'll give you just 10 seconds to download it while I drink some of this. So for instance, this is a piece called Atraente, okay, by Chiquinha Gonzaga. She was a great Brazilian composer, a woman, actually, in those times where most of the music was made by Africans and slaves or ex-slaves, and, you know, and then people that would be classified as, you know, not the right people. It's very funny because the whole history of Brazil is like, some people we don't like is making some music, so we don't accept that. But suddenly the music becomes so popular that then the ones that are ruling and didn't accept that, they say, oh, this is our music, like in Samba, Bossa, even in the show on the Maxi Say, when they became so popular all around the world, suddenly the people in power and the high society started saying that was their music. But before that, they were like, no, you should never just listen to the music or dance that music. It's like, no, this is sing, and whatever, you go to hell, and this kind of thing. Anyway, it happens. Sounds familiar, yeah? Like many cultures happen. So this piece was written by Chiquinha Gonzaga. She was a woman composer coming from a high status, like a high society family. Actually, she had to fight against her family to be a composer and to play music and to hang out with all these guys, if you see what it says A, well, the first line is just the intro. So you see there, if you see on the bottom, on the A, if you see the bottom line, okay, you see like a combination. I mean, maybe for some of you might be difficult to see of the bass coming from the lundu, not from the polka, but you will see also some notes, especially the notes when you see on the first beat and the fourth 16 notes. Okay, we'll have this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You're marking the lundu right there. And then you have the melody on top, and you can notice too that you have a lot of groups of 16 notes, and then you have some notes already on the last 16 notes where you have that Brazilian elementary pulse that we mentioned at the beginning. So you see, when you see this full arrangement, you will not see all the things that we just spoke about. You will see like a bunch of notes, chords, and bass lines and melodies that you have to play at once. All right. But if you have just a little understanding of what's going on, you're going to put more intention in what you play, and things are going to come alive and things are going to really groove and happen. Okay. Otherwise, you'll sound, I don't know, no offense, but like a classical guitar player trying to play Brazilian music or flamenco or something else, So we need to understand well rhythm and grooves and styles. All right. So you have that page there in case you want to try that piece. Yeah. And let's move to the next because it's a lot of stuff and a lot of time. And the next thing we're going to have, let me just send it to you so you can follow me. It says pick. There in your chat, you have the next one. Okay. And now we have kind of like the opposite. We have the polka, instead of taking the downbeat, okay, instead of taking the boom, 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 we have the pa, the boom, pa, boom, pa, boom, pa. So we take the pa, okay. If you go to the page on where the polka is, you'll see what the pa is. It's right after the first eighth note, okay. And from the lundu, okay, now we're going to combine it in a different way. We're going to have here the evolution of the style that I was mentioning earlier, that it was named back then Tango Brasileiro, okay, which was something like a Brazilian tango, something that, like I said, this is before the Argentinian tango, and when the Argentinian tango became so popular, people just in Brazil stopped using the tango, this kind of term for this style, but they still use the rhythm. Okay, see, if you see on the exercise 35, it goes like boom, pom, 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 pom. So what is this? This, at first sight, will sound much like a Cuban Avanera. Okay, for those who are familiar, the Cuban Avanera also have that subdivision of 3-3-2, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2. But what does it make it different than a Brazilian tango? Okay, or the pattern of the old tango brasileiro that now is used, and it's like on the Habanera, we have the weight, we have it on the downbeat, boom, 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 boom. Okay. Okay, so it's like boom, 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 boom. So the downbeat has the weight. But in the Brazilian tango, which can sound about the same, okay, we have the weight on the 16th note, the last 16th note of a group of 4. Okay, so right before the downbeat. Boom, 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 boom. So you see, it's very important, for many people when they start playing these kind of patterns in Brazilian music, okay, if they're not used to it or they don't know it, even, many of you, if you try any Brazilian music, probably you found this pattern and you were playing it. You probably maybe didn't know what it was called or whatever. No problem, but most people tend to put the weight on the downbeat, like a Cuban Avanera. Okay, but it's not like that. So we have here, if we see the voice and non-voice pattern, which is like the second line on exercise 35, is like teco, 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 teco. Okay, that will be your pattern, your rhythm right there. Okay, and if you see exercise 36, it has like the polka rhythm. Okay, like this will sound like a polka rhythm. Now, should I give you both pages at the same time? But anyway, I'm going little by little so nobody gets lost with pages. If you check the page I just put on the chat, we continue here. Okay. And now we have the polka rhythm that we just saw earlier, like. And now we introduced that tresillo, or that 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2, okay, that we got from the lundu, which give us also the same pattern as the habanera, which is like. Okay, and then if you go to exercise 38, you will see the actual tango brasileiro pattern, okay, which is more like. Okay, you can try it. I'll give you a couple of seconds to try it. You see the difference, yeah? And be very careful with 38, exercise 38, because there is where we can start putting the accent on the downbeat, on the second downbeat, or the 16th note right before it, okay? We can do this. And that would be more like, it will sound more like an habanera, more like a sophisticated habanera anyway, but here we have to do. So every time you go to the 6, try to give it a little bit more, accent it a little bit, okay? Give it some more weight, all right? To make it sound like that. Okay? You'll see many places, many pieces, for instance, there is, it's written right there too. Well, actually, you see you even have the photo of Pixinguinha, yeah, the famous Pixinguinha. Was also a great musician, performer, and composer. Yeah, also started playing like many of the Brazilian players back then. On the famous movie theaters. Where many musicians were actually try to make a living. Those were the places to go and play and try to get paid. And he has this famous composition Uma Zero, which is like 0-1. It was because I can't remember what year was it. There was some soccer football match, and that was the result. And funnily enough, here we have another example of this Uma Zero. Is a choro. It's considered a choro, but actually the rhythm is a Brazilian tango. It's a tango brasileiro. Okay, so many times you might look for this piece and it will say it underneath choro, or it will say tango brasileiro, depending where you get it. You will see one or the other, but just know that it's both. And why? Because it is composed like a choro, probably in terms of a structure. Okay, a choro, many times the structure has, for instance, starts major, then the second part goes into the minor, okay, into the relative minor, if you follow a little bit of harmony here, okay, and then the third part will modulate, which usually modulates, I think it's to the fourth degree, to the subdominant. So let's say we're in C major, the first part will be on C major, like a major scale happy melody. The second part will be on A minor, okay, and the third part, well, then you will go back to the first part on C major, and then the new part, which will be the third part, will be on F major, okay. So this is Pichinguinha de Suma Cerro. When you play, you can do this pattern. Okay, so it goes like this pattern we see on exercise number 38. As a matter of fact, I think I have it here. Yeah, let me send you this, and let me check. I think it's here somewhere. Boom, 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 boom. Is it? Yes, here it is. Let me send you this PDF. It has several scores. Okay. And if you open it, like the second song is Un Macero, Pichinguinha. It's a very famous choro. Okay. So you see the chords, G7 to C. So now the pattern that we have before was so boom cha boom 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 boom cha, with the accent on that fourth 16th note. So that will be kind of like the accompaniment of this choro. Yeah, I played a little bit slow, okay, because it's way faster than that. Okay, so here you have one piece actually and this score is what I was meaning at the beginning, where you find like Brazilian music written just on a chart with a melody and the chord progression. Okay, this is actually a fancy one that has two stops. So, and you see at the beginning it says choro vivo, like a happy choro, like a fast choro. Okay, but now a real choro player, when you go to a roda de choro, you will actually need to know that this choro, when you play the accompaniment, you need to use the tango brasileiro, the Brazilian tango pattern. Okay, otherwise, people will look at you like, your rhythm, your accompaniment is not right. So you gotta be careful, because not all choros have used the same choro rhythm, just to so call it. So when you learn a choro, don't think, okay, this is the choro rhythm and this is how I can play any choro. Not at all. Yeah. All right. Any questions so far? I'm going fast here, but I'm just trying to get you to understand some terms and pass you information.
Yes. Yeah. I got a question, Fernando.
Yes.
So you talk about all these different styles, choro and tangos and everything like that. Would you just be able to give us a little demonstration in the rhythm, perhaps just by clapping it, kind of like the percussion rhythm or the drum rhythm of what would be involved?
Well, look, these patterns that I'm showing you on the PDFs that I'm sending, the ones I'm saying that are voiced and unvoiced, those are basically patterns that, depending on the style and the percussion instruments that they use, if it's a pandeiro, a tamborin, or something else, yeah, they will use a lot of these patterns. A lot of them, they will come from for the guitar, most of the time we copy patterns that comes from the pandeiro or the tamborin. So that would be, like for instance, this one we have here, the Tango Brasileiro, will be like this. Let me see if I can sing at the same time, you know. Dum ba bum 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 ba bum ba bum ba bum bum ba da ba bum ba bum ba ba dum bum ba da ba bum. Let me see. That will be your pattern right there, okay? Then you have the other one that we say from the Maxi too. And let's see if we go a little bit quicker here because it's a lot of stuff, but we need to start from the beginnings. If we go, for instance, let me just do like a quick jump. For instance, let me find it here. What is it? Here, right here. This is page 11. Let me send it to you so you can see it. I'm gonna skip a little bit forward. And if you see this one that I'm sending you, if you go to exercise 55, this will be one of your, this will be from tambourine, and this will be for samba. And sometimes used also in bossa nova, okay? So if you see the first line says, ta 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 ta. This is a super common pattern for samba, okay? But the way you have to do it with the voice and voice lines, okay? Because if you do this like, it sounds very, I mean, you might recognize it, but it's not, it doesn't sound so authentic, you know? It might go more like, okay, you're filling up. You're filling. It's like, for instance, you play funky music, for instance, many times you're doing this. You're keeping this, but you're like. So you're feeling always like in the gaps, because if you don't do that, it doesn't sound so authentic. So when you get to that pattern with the voiced and unvoiced lines, is where you get this teco teco line that you can see there on the samba pattern, which is like teco 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 teco. Okay, and that's actually what you will hear on the tambourine. Okay. When the guy is playing on top or underneath, you know, you see the different hits on the tambourine, and it will give you this pattern. You will recognize it. It's in a way, it's kind of like, for those of you that check maybe any of the sessions that we saw in Indian music with the tabla, and you hear the balls, you know, the da dina tina kadina, da dina tina kadina. It's like when you learn that, you will recognize later the rhythm. You know where you are, and also that's where you're trying to imitate and copy with your rhythm. That's like the way the groove sounds. Okay. So, for instance, we go to this samba one for you, Ed. You have like a really full one right there, like teco 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 teco. If we follow the next exercise, you just have one chord there, like. Then you can go the fancy way of let's say you go like. Well, you're putting actually the bass line there, which we didn't get there, but that's actually, you will copy what the zurdo is doing, okay? That's like a big drums you'll see a lot in samba, you know, they're like boom, 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 and it's like the bass percussion. So, like I said, many times on the guitar, we copy more from those other instruments, but then we combine. In the case of samba, for instance, we also take from the zurdo, just to get that. So this will come from one percussion instrument, and this will come from another percussion instrument, and together we'll do the whole thing. And that especially when we play like solo Brazilian guitar. Obviously, we have other instruments, etc. We can kind of relax a little bit and just play certain beats or certain accents that are more important. But still, the rest need to be there. I mean, never forget that even if we call it unvoiced pattern, it doesn't mean that we can just not use it and use the other one. And no, they need to be together, because if you don't have both, you don't have that contrast of one pulling the other, and then it will not walk the same way. Yeah. What else? Any more questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Some books and some methods out there, they're always talking about like these little grooves that it gives you the idea for the pattern, like the rhythm pattern and some bass chord progression.
Yeah.
But it's always very difficult, like you said at the beginning of this session. It's always very difficult to find like a whole arrangement for like a very traditional song. How we can find those pieces and practice them, or you have those in your book or some
Well,
other?
actually, in my book, the last book that I published is more focused. I mean, it has a little bit of everything, of course, but I mean, it's focused on explaining these things. Okay, but also, yeah, it also includes some pieces that are like a full arrangement for guitar, for 6 strings. It also has some full arrangements for guitar, for 6-string guitars, but they come from 7 strings Brazilian guitar, like it was mentioned at the beginning. And there's also a few pieces that are arranged for 2 guitars, where one guitar is just playing the melody and the other guitar is playing only the rhythm. So you can see very clearly, you know, like the maxi, we were doing like, then you have variations, you know. Because this, it sounds very, it has no spice on it, you know, it needs to be played in a different way. Otherwise it sounds too basic. That's not like a Brazilian artist would actually play it so simple. We start like, okay, so yeah, in the book you can find all like the simple versions, the 2 guitars, the 1 guitars, but you'll find a lot of these explanations because that's what I felt it was needed. Because obviously you'll find, you know, starting with the course in world music method, where the tutor will explain you, you know, how to play a samba pattern and what chords to use and all these things. But like I said, in many places what you will find is either the chart with the chords and the melody, or some of the books, yeah, you'll find arrangements. But like you said, it has to be, it has to happen that writer took the piece you want to learn and made an arrangement of it, you know, because otherwise, like for instance, if you talk about bossa nova, for instance, a lot of the famous bossa novas is just one guy playing the chords, which is nice. But us as guitar players, especially when we play alone, we want to play alone or instrumental, we want to be able to do like the melody and the chords and everything. Then that is more difficult because, like you said, unless you find somebody who wrote an arrangement and publish it so you can learn it, you know, eventually, if you understand these things that we just spoke about today, you will be able to build the whole thing yourself. Because you know, okay, I need to put this bass line, I need to put these chords here, and I need to play this melody. So in the piece that I just sent you the first page, the Atraente, it's just like that. If you hear the original piece, you see there on the guitar, okay, here's the melody. And one way you can do it too, if you want to try to do it on your own, is you take a piece. I would suggest you starting with something easy, even a bossa nova that is a little bit slower or something like that. And just take the melody and write it, okay? And then say, okay, how is the bass line of a bossa nova? Like this or like that? Write the bass line underneath your melody. And it's like, where should I put the chords on a bossa nova? I can use this pattern or the other pattern. You know, you can find those on my books, also on the course at the World Music Method. So you apply that pattern to the chord changes. And if you write all that down, basically you have your arrangement. The only thing you need to be careful about is how you arrange it so you can play it on the guitar, because it's not a piano. You cannot just write anything. I mean, you only have like 6 notes available at one time, you know. So for that, there are other tricks, you know, that it will be like a different topic to talk about, you know, how to arrange things for the guitar, you know, and make those arrangements that people are listening to. Then it's like, wow, is that one guitar player or 2 or even 3, you know, and it's just one guy. But anyway, that, like I said, best recommendation, try to understand what you're doing, because then you won't depend on finding arrangements made for you to learn them just like that, you know.
Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Any more questions? Anybody?
I'm just curious about finding like sort of the recordings to listen to of this being done, you know, really correctly to work
That is
on.
Yeah, that is quite challenging, you know, because I mean, obviously, just to put it in a simple way, I will try to always go to Brazilian guys, but like you can figure out, not every Brazilian guy will do it right neither, you know, like not every Spanish guys can play flamenco, or at least right, but you know, and try to get names that are kind of like respected, yeah, and have a career on it. Like for instance, Ed and I were talking about this guy Yamandu Costa, who is very famous nowadays. Is a really good reference. For instance, this is gonna sound a little bit bad, but I will never try to listen to a jazz player playing Brazilian music in order to learn Brazilian music, because one of the things, not that all of them are doing it wrong, not at all, you know, but a lot of them, and if you've learned jazz, you know, in a music school or in the jazz world, when they go to the subject of the Brazilian repertoire used in jazz, they're like, okay, here I'm gonna give you a couple of patterns for bossa nova and a couple of patterns for samba, or some, they would even tell you, just take the bossa nova, play it fast, it's a samba, you play it slow, it's a bossa nova, and that's it, and off you go, yeah. So you can imagine what you can learn from that.
Could
So
you
just go for the real sources.
how do you spell that name, Armando?
Yamandu Costa, there you go, right there.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. But also just learn, listen to the old guys, you know, like Pichinguinha and all these famous Jacob the Mandolin. It's a lot of like the classics, you know, the old guys, the vintage guys, as we might call it nowadays, yeah. And you'll never go wrong. And even if you don't always listen to a guitar on the recordings, still you'll get the rhythms, which is more important. Once you get the rhythms, you'll be able to do it with the guitar. That's not a problem, you know. It's not a problem about chords or whatever, you know. It's basically the rhythms and understanding them. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
All right, what else? So who else?
Yeah, Fernando. So what you were saying earlier about you are kind of taking the pandero rhythms or the rhythms of other instruments and playing them on a guitar. Are you only doing that when you're kind of playing solo guitar? If there was a pandero, would you adapt?
Most of the time, I will do it, even if there was a percussion instrument, you know. And it's basically taking the pandero, obviously rhythmically speaking, okay. But there are different ways to apply that, because one thing is to apply it with the fingers and thumb, you know, like teco, teco, te, teco, 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 te, teco, teco, or just by doing everything with fingers and mute and doing the ko by muting on the left hand, you know. So this is my te, and this will be my ko, or basically just when I release, you know. Teco, teco, te, teco, 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 te, teco. But if you do this, the ko is not there, and it doesn't sound the same. It doesn't flow the same way, you know. So even if you have a percussion instrument, you still have to follow that kind of thing. Otherwise, you're not representing your groove will not be so good. I mean, you might feel like a nice push from the percussion instrument, but it will be carrying you, you know, and you're not really walking on your own. And that, I mean, depending on who you play with, they're not gonna pass it, yeah. So, what else? Actually, we saw quite a few things, not that many. We didn't get into a lot of styles, but it's important that you got a good understanding from all these things. I mean, we haven't spoken much about samba, bossa, and all that, because we only had 1 hour and there's so much to cover. But just to give you an idea of the way to go, yeah, to understand things, because otherwise, it's a crazy world, the Brazilian music, and like you saw, so many names. Some of them have double names, and you have to know what it refers to. Some of styles are not really like music styles, like maybe like a dance style, or maybe like, for instance, if you have the maracatu, you know, it's not even like a music style. It's basically a ritual, you know. But this ritual, the way they play, they actually used to use only percussions and voices singing. But then people take the guitar or other instruments and say, I'm going to make a song that has a maracatu. And now people think that a maracatu is like a music style. And not really, you know. or things like that. So you have to have those things clear to know exactly what comes from where, so you can actually represent it the right way.
So, Fernando, where can people find your book?
Right on my website, just fernandoperezguitar.com. fernandoperezguitar.com. Here it is written. There you go. You can find it right there, and obviously you have also the fantastic Brazilian guitar course on the world music method, and all the different online classes and lessons that we do, every month. So
yeah, actually tomorrow we've got an excellent guitarist from the north of Brazil. He's got this amazing right hand technique. He'll be doing some I think it's 5. I think he'll be here at 5 p.m. Tomorrow. So we've got a few different artists doing little kind of short performances, workshops, discussions about their music, and that's a friend of mine, Silas Giron, will be here at 5 o'clock. So that will be good. I think some of you might have seen
and
his
he's
stuff.
from the north of Brazil, yeah.
He's from Bahia, yeah.
So there you go. I mean, he's right from the cradle.
Yeah. So yeah, he'll be
You
great.
get a lot of the a lot of the styles in Brazilian music, they came from the Northeast, you know.
Cool. Well, nice one. Thanks very much, guys. So, I mean, this is a free session, but basically we do this every single week with different guitar styles with Fernando and some of the other guitar teachers at the World Music Method. And we record all these sessions, and then we get our fantastic transcribers to write the notation and sync it all to the screens. So if you then check into the account the following day or maybe 2 days after, if it's a complex thing, everything will be ready to watch with the transcription synced and all the tab and stuff, so it makes it a little bit easier. So if any of you aren't in the regular membership, that's called the Guitar Academy, and if you do want to try that out, it only costs £1 for a 14-day trial, and whilst you are able to do all the Zoom lessons and view the recordings, you can also access all the other courses that we've got. So all of the guitar and bass and drum lessons as well are in there as well. So if you want to check that out, that's all easy to find on the website. So thanks so much to all of you for coming. Thank you to Fernando for very in-depth, in a short time, about a huge world of music, but zoned in and nice and defined, I think is the right word.
Yeah, so much to cover. Yeah, it's crazy to think in 1 hour we'll get too far. But yeah, it was great. So thanks everybody for being here, and hopefully we'll see you around and work on more stuff on the guitar.
Cool. All right, cheers guys. So hopefully see all of you tomorrow if you can make it. So we'll start at 4 o'clock tomorrow. A couple of sessions until 6, and then there's a bass lesson 6 o'clock until 7. And it's World Music Day, so you're all welcome to come and celebrate world music.
All right, happy World Music Day.